36 years that we've had an outdoor Tisha B'Av mincha. From 1977 to 1991, it was at the Soviet mission to the UN. And you know what happened to the Soviets? We're opposite the United Nations. What's going to happen in the UN? Maybe, maybe not. But maybe our tefillahs will help. In more serious stuff, there have been many, as we know, many bad things that have happened in Tisha B'Av. And unfortunately, something just happened today as well. And that is that the European Union announced today that it is boycotting all 28 nations of the European Union. The European Union announced that all its 28 nations will not have anything to do with any Israeli entity beyond the 1967 Israel borders. So for instance, they won't have anything to do with Hebrew University, beyond the border. Hadassah Hospital, beyond the border. Efrat is long gone. I mean, but this is, while the Middle East is burning, while millions are rioting, while blood is flowing, our friends at the United Nations are taking it easy, and our folks at the European Union are simply looking away and saying, it must be the Jews' fault. So this is Tisha B'Av that we have to think that not just historical, not just things that happened in the past, but things that are going on today. The speakers today will be, of course, Rabbi Avi Weiss, who's the National President of Amcha Coalition for Jewish Concerns and a spiritual leader of the Hebrew Institute of Riverdale and many more things. Helen Friedman, the Executive Director of Americans for a Safe Israel. Barbara Ribakov, the Executive Director of North American Conference on Ethiopian Jews, who has some important late-breaking information, and a special guest who would rather not be here, but it's important to hear him. Dr. Naftali Moses. Dr. Naftali Moses was one of the 8 students who were murdered by a Palestinian terrorist in the Merkaz Arav terror attack. Dr. Moses teaches medical ethics in Israel. He's brought here by the One Israel Fund, which deals with victims of terror. I heard Dr. Moses speak on Shabbat at Lincoln Square Synagogue. He has a very powerful message. So let us almost begin.
A little bit of light has the power to push away the darkness of the world. So there is darkness in too many places of the world for our people, for all people. 2 days from now is July 18th. On that day we commemorate the biggest attack against the Jewish community in the exile since the Shoah, the bombing of the Amia Jewish Community Center building in Buenos Aires. I wanted to encourage those who can. We're assembling at 8:30 a.m. sharp at the Argentinian Consul General's office. That's at 13 West, 12 West, 56th Street. The reason we're assembling that early is the bomb explosion took place at 9:53 a.m. Buenos Aires time, which is 8:53 a.m. New York time. We want to be there at 8:30 and do what they're doing in Buenos Aires, calling out the names of each of those who were murdered. And they respond with the word presente, which means that soul is present and still lives. I'm sure you know that the Argentinian government has now forged an alliance, believe it or not, with Iran. And together Argentina and Iran have formed a so-called truth commission to find out who the culprits are. No one has been arrested. Literally, not one person has been brought to trial on the Amiyah Hara. So let's listen closely as Irving leads us in our hope and prayer that light push away darkness.
Mourners Kaddish. Amen. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba V'Varach L'Olam L'Omei Omayah. Amen. We continue with Ashrei. Ashrei Shevisecha Yalom Hasela. Tilas, Adonai David, Pirech HaMasar Shem Gad Shali Olam V'Ed, V'Anachnu Nevarech Yamet Amen Olam, Hallelujah. Yizkadav, Yizkadash, Shmei Rabbah, Yomad Yirach Yiseg, Yom Lichmach L'Seg, Hayichad Ram L'Cholam, Chayil Chavei Yisrael, Bagol Yisrael, Kriya V'Imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah, Nevarach Yom Hayah, Barak Yishmael Yismar Yismar Yismasei, Yisadar Yisrael Yisrael Shmei Kuchav Yichu, Leilom Yikam Shasav Yisrael 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 Yomad Yimru, Amen. Yisicha. Let's see. God will let her eat in Ramamash,
Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael.
Amen.
Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai. Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Am Yisrael.
Amen.
Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai.
Yeshua Berachamim.
So this afternoon we read the Vayachal Moshe. Vayachal is a language of prayer where Moshe offers supplication and prayer to God that he protect Am Yisrael, and God, Vayinachem Hashem, does so then, may he do so now. I also wanted just to thank everybody for coming out. It's just
אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
Amen. Vayachal Moshe es pnei Adonai Elohav vayomer Lama Adonai yechareh apcha b'amecha asher otzeso me'eretz Mitzrayim b'cho hagadol v'yad chazaka laham yomru Mitzrayim lemor bira'ot Latziom, Laharogosam Behorim, Ulchalosam, Mayal, Pnayadamo. Liamecha, Zechor, Liabraham, Litzchak uLyisrael avodecha, Asher nishbata lahem, Boch v'tadaber alehem arbes zarachem, Kichokvei hashamoyim v'chol haaretz hazos, Asher amarti, Etein lizarachem, v'nochalu le'olam, Vayinochem Adonai al ha'ra'ah, Asher diber la'asos le'amo.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch. Baruch Adonai Baruch. Baruch Adonai Baruch Mashiach. Baruch Adonai
Moshe Sol Lecha Shnei Luchos Avanim Karishonim Lechosavti al Haluchos Es Hadvarim Asher Hayu Al Haluchos Harishonim Asher Shibarta Ve'Yenachon Haboker Ve'Olisav Haboker El Har Sinai Nitzav Toli Shom Al Rosh Har Ve'ish Lo Yaleh Imach V'Gam Yishal Yiro B'Chol Har Gam Hatzon V'Habakor Al Yir'u El Mul Harahu.
Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tzivenu. Baruch Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Baruch atah Eloheinu asher b'charav mikol ha'amim natan lanu es toraso. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Vayifsol Shilchos Avanim Karishonim Vayashkem Moshe Baboker Vayal El Har Sinai Kasher Tzivah Adonai So Vayikach B'yado Shnei Luchos Avanim Vayered Adonai Be'anon Vayityatzei Imaho Sham Vayikra B'Shem Adonai Vayavor Adonai Al Panav Vayikra Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum B'Chanun, Ercha Payim Rav Chesed V'Yemes, Notzeh Chesed L'Alafim, Notzeh Abon, V'Pesha B'Chata, V'Nakei, Lo Yinakeh Pokei, Avon Avos, Al Banim V'Al B'nei Wanim, Al Shileshim V'Al Riveim, Vayimaher Moshe Vayikod Arza Vayishtachu, Vayomer Imna, Vatzasi Chen B'Einecha Adonai, Yelech No Adonai B'Kirbeinu, Ki Am K'Shei Orechu. B'Zolach Kol Avonenu Chatoseinu U'Nchaltonu Vayomer Hinei Honochi Kareis Breeze Neged Kol Amcha E'esen Niflos Asher Lo Nivru B'Chol Haaretz V'Lo Hagoyim V'Ra'ach Chol Ha'am Asher Atah V'Kirbo Es Maaseh Adonai Ki Norahu Asher Ani Oseh Imach Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu toras hamet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Israel
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'yamim tovim v'atav divrayim anamer damas. Baruch atah Adonai, habocher b'torah Moshe Avdo. Yisrael amo v'yehu emes v'tzedek. Yeshua Adonai b'moto karo v'yasok karo v'yasok rosho darko Yishad enoch shvosov Yeshua Adonai v'rachamenu Yel Eloheinu yardel l'sloa Ki lo mat shvosai mat shvos etem Lo darchechem d'rachai milum Adonai Ki gavu shamayim ha'yaretz Ken gavu d'rachai midarchechem Mat shvosai mat shvos etem הגשם מן השלג מן השמיים ושם לא ישוב כי ימהרו אס הארץ והולידה בצמיחה ונשא זרע לזרע והלחם לאוכל כן ידברי אשר תצא מפי לא ישוב אלי ריקום כי מוסס אשר חפצתי והצליח אשר שלחתי כי בשמחה יצאו בשלום תבלון ההרים והגבעות יפתחו לפניכם רינה ותעשו וימחאו תחת הנצוץ יעלה בראש וסחס הצרפות יעלה הדף ויול אדוני לשם לעוס עולם לא ייחרץ כה אמר אדוני שמרו משפט ועשו צדקה כי גבה ישועתי לבוא צדקתי להיגלות אשרי אנוש יעשה טוב ואדון יציג בו שומר שבס בחללו שומר ידו ויעזוב חורו אמן Levor Abdel Yadilani Adonai Me'alamo Yal Yomar HaSaris Einani Eitz Yavesh Bicho Amar Adonai L'Asorisim Asher Yishmeru Es Shabsasai Uvacharu Basher Chapotzti Machzikim B'Reisiv Nasarti Lahem B'Reisiv Chomosai Yod Vashem Tobi Banim U'Mibanot Shem Olam Eten Lo Asher Lo Yikaresh U'Bnei HaNechor Hanugim Al Adonai L'Shor So Li'avo Es Shem Adonai Li'aslo L'Avodim Kol Shomer Shabbos Mechalalo Matzikim B'Reisiv Al Yasim El Har Kodshim V'Snaftim B'Beis Tivasi Oloseihem Tivchayhem L'Ratzon O'Mitbachim Ki V'Si V'Svilo Yikarei L'Cholamim L'Yum Adonai Elohim L'Mikabei Kitchai Yisrael Od Akabei Tzolad L'Yikot Tzov Baruch Hazar Melech L'Cholam L'Cholamim Tzadikot Rod Hayanem Omer Gosem L'Berhem Shkol Baruch Mitzvotzek Nemon Atod Melech L'Cholamim Tzorech Tzorech Mivarech Chol Hashirikam Yom Nemon Rachman Atod Baruch Adonai Hayanem Mechol Devarach Achem Osem Kibetz Chayin Hol V'Matzav Toshia B'Yerachem Baruch Adonai V'Samet Zion B'Vaneh Samcheinu Na'inu V'Yayan V'Yafet Malchus V'Tovim V'Shnet Chadim V'Yavam V'Yogen Divenu Al Yitzel V'Yay Shetzar L'Yin Chalot Achim Yesprodo Yivim Kach Chal Nishmat Al Shechmet Ne'Ral Yalam Dovet Baruch Ato Adonai Magen David Amen. Amen.
perhaps Dr. Moses will be saying a few words.
Amen.
God calls out and he says to Cain, Kol demei achicha soakim elai min hadama. The voice of your brother's bloods cry out to me from the ground. One wonders, why is it in the plural, bloods and not blood? There are all kinds of commentaries. One, that he was so young that in his death was also, if you will, the demise of potential life that would never come into the world. But I also think that it's the plural, because when something so horrific occurs, that blood is lost. But we've all lost a little bit of blood. We've all suffered. And so we offer our words of inadequate comfort to Dr. Naftali Moses. His son was 16 years old. Abraham David was just learning in the library when he was so brutally taken from us. Dr. Moses teaches medical ethics. He's a resident of Efrat, where our children live. I had the great zchut of being in Israel just a few days ago and seeing my eldest grandson, Gilad, may God bless him, finish what's called Maslul Egoz. It was a Tekez. He finished an elite infantry unit. It was just overwhelming. When I looked at him, I literally couldn't recognize him. His face was all black and green. He with the Chevra had been walking from Nahariya the previous Saturday night to Sunday morning. They walked 125 kilometers, and Gilad is the Magist. He carries the Mag. The gun itself is 24 pounds, and his ammunition. May God bless him, all of his Chevra, all of Tzva Haganah Israel. As some of you have heard me say over and over, the holiest Jews are those who stand and fight and protect Am Yisrael and are members of Tzva Haganah Israel. So as Dr. Moses comes forward, our hearts go out to you. We're very grateful to one family, to Mayor Bellsberg, to Chantal, to those who do such extraordinary work.
It's called the Plowshares.
Avram David smiled at me as I hopped with effort and offered to take the knapsack I was carrying. He shouldered the bag, smiled at me again, and took off uphill, quickly leaving me behind. As I came to the end of the climb, sweating and panting, there he was waiting for me at the top near the trailhead, looking at his watch with a big grin on his face. We had hiked and biked together since he was only 2 years old. And finally bested his old man. I laughed with him as he announced how many minutes he had already been sitting in the sun watching for my arrival. We strolled together back to the car, happy to be together, each of us happy to witness a boy's growing up. Only a few months later, on a rainy Jerusalem night, we would be sitting in my car, he and I, talking about whether he would remain in high school at all, why he had stopped attending classes, and why he had spent a few weeks trying to subsist on mostly bread and water while keeping up a grueling study schedule. Was he on his way to becoming one of our generation's Torah luminaries? I wasn't sure. I was a worried father wondering what was becoming of his son. In the end, what he became was another victim of Arab terror. A quote-unquote martyr, killed only because he was a Jew living in the Jewish state and learning Torah. As much as I mourn Abraham David, the boy he was, I also mourn his last chance. I mourn for what he might have become, even if it was only a contented, smiling youth once again. Where his soul resides now, in the upper reaches of heaven reserved for the innocent martyrs of our people, perhaps, in a way, he is that
one more time. That Avram David's brother Elisha is right over here. And Vani Mavarech Otcha, he just finished the triathlon in 2:45, so who knows what that means. Shaldak, Mankal, who knows. And Elisha is the prophet who brings people back to life. There's even a hospital in Haifa, it's called Elisha, where soldiers who have been injured literally for decades lie. And they're given help in the prayer that somehow a miracle occurs so that they can walk and they could live. So I bless you, Elisha, that you bring life. You bring life to Am Yisrael, to Medinat Yisrael, to your wonderful, wonderful Abba. And God should be with you and fully with your entire family. We're going to continue the tefillah with Chasid Kaddish and then with the Shemona Esrei.
Continuous repetition, Yamida. Baruch atah Adonai, Elohei Eloheinu, Hey Abraham, Hey Yitzchak, Hey Yaakov, Hey Gibor, Hey Eliyahu, Chasim Tavim, Kanei, Hakol, Hey Chadebos, Zidiyu Elim Elohim, Shavi Avos, Melchazim Hashem again, Baruch atah Adonai, Again Abraham, Atah Adonai, B'chai Mitzvot Rav, Moshe, B'chal Kachai, B'chesed, B'chai Mitzvim, Rachim Rabim, Samech Tafilim, B'chai Cholim, B'chai Yasrim, Kaim Nasol Shenei Afar, Executive
Director of the North American Conference of Ethiopian Jews, and Helen Friedman. Helen had to leave. Lainey is going to speak on her behalf. But we may, after all these years, be coming somewhere near, possibly close to a possible resolution of bringing home the majority of our brethren from Ethiopia. It's not as easy as it sounds. There's more stuff going on.
You've already probably heard that the Aliyah of the Ethiopian Jews is about to end. You will hear it again in August when the Jewish Agency leaves the old Nakoj compounds in Ethiopia and says that the Aliyah is over. However, in a gigantic undertaking, like bringing thousands and thousands of Ethiopian Jews out of a country where there are no documents, there are no records to deal with, where everything has to depend on oral interviews, there are bound to be errors, and not through anybody's fault, but because it's inevitable. Some people have never been interviewed at all, even though their entire families, their mothers, their fathers, their grandparents, their siblings, and in some cases even their children, are still in Ethiopia. In other cases, some people have been inadvertently rejected when actually the facts are that they are eligible. So for many months now, we have been trying to get Israel to produce a simple course of appeals, as we have in courts. If the verdict is in, that doesn't mean you can't appeal it. It's taken a long time, but as of 2 days ago, there is now what they call a committee of exceptions, which is an appeal source. And at this point, people in Israel will be able, in an organized and reasonable way, to present the facts of their relatives still in Ethiopia, and the relatives will be interviewed or again interviewed. And in the cases that we have brought before this, by random almost, virtually everyone who was reintroduced was then found to be acceptable. I don't know what the numbers are. If you read the Jewish Week of 2 weeks ago, You saw a number being placed at somewhere around 2,500. I am not sure that that is the number. It may be more, it may be less. We won't know until we go further. But I am really, really happy to tell you that this process is now going to take place, and that we are still working on making sure that it includes the people who should have come in under more than one aliyah from Ethiopia. And until that is regularized, and until the last of these people come in, we can't really say the aliyah is over. We want every one of our brothers and sisters who are living very, very, very poorly in Ethiopia and will be living far worse when the Jewish Agency closes the old compounds, when there is no feeding center, when there is no school, when there is no synagogue. We are all very troubled about how the people will survive. But somehow they are managing, and what they tell us, and I just had the message at, it was 1:30 in the morning this morning, I had the message, all we want is to be able to live as Jews in Ethiopia till we get to Israel. So I want to say thank you to all of you who have been supporters of the North American Conference on Ethiopian Jewry, to Glenn, who is a member of our advisory board, to Rob Weiss, who has been just the most wonderful, wonderful source of support and kindness all these many years. And maybe by next year, at this time, we will truly be able to say the Aliyah is over, everybody is home. Thank you.